Hello everyone, welcome to a new video lesson. Today we will learn about the structure and plot of the novel Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. This novel has 4 parts. Each part deals with the adventures of Lemuel Gulliver in different places. So let's begin. Gulliver's Travels appeared at a time when scientific reason and rationality was a dominant intellectual context. The Enlightenment sensibility was already visible, but was also being challenged. This challenge came from writers such as Samuel Richardson, who supported sentiment and feelings rather than reason and rationality. Swift was also writing at the time of expanding geography. Travels and voyages to distant parts of the world were broadening the Englishman's vision of the earth itself. The travelogue was a popular form of literature during this period, and Swift was using this form in this novel. Gulliver's Travels is a novel of education, with Gulliver acquiring a knowledge of new cultures and discovering truths about his own. The novel works as a comedy because it seeks to laugh at the world. It uses human characteristics as themes in order to mock them. When we discuss the novel as a satire, it is these aspects of the novel that will come in for attention. Swift also shows how mankind has various follies and vices. One way of dealing with and presenting these in comedy works in this case as satire by focusing on emotional, bodily, and psychological conditions. Swift shows us the follies humans can fall into. Gulliver's Travels is written in the form of a travelogue or a travel narrative. Gulliver travels to various places and records his experiences. The entire novel is like a factual account of what he sees and records. The traveler is the observer and commentator and tries to report as an objective viewer. The tone of the novel is objective, and Gulliver tries to keep his narration as emotionless as possible. Gulliver's Travels was the culmination of Swift's literary achievement, his magnum opus. It was begun in 1720 and finally published in 1726. It is at once a delightful, fantastic story of adventure for children, a political allegory, and a serious satire on human nature, on contemporary politics, social institutions, religious controversies, on the manners and morals of the age. The book is written in the form of a travelogue. The hero and narrator of the story is Lemuel Gulliver, an English physician who opts to travel as ship's surgeon when he is unable to take care of his family on his meager income. Gulliver is endowed with a keen, almost journalistic sense of reportage and a desire to travel. The book is made up of 4 parts, each dealing with the persona's experiences in a different fantasy land. Part 1 is titled A Voyage to Lilliput. It deals with Gulliver's experiences in the land of the little people, who are no more than 6 inches tall. It is on one level an absorbing tale of the adventures of the giant Gulliver among the Lilliputians, and on another level, rich in allegorical references to the politics in England. It is, above all, a scathing satire on the moral pettiness of humans, as seen in the behavior of the Lilliputians. Human beings are filled with the sense of their own grandeur and importance and cannot view themselves with objectivity. Their pride and boastfulness are revealed as ridiculous when perceived from Gulliver's great height. The graph of events in part 1 are as follows. Gulliver, a prisoner in Lilliput. Gulliver's pockets are searched. The diversions in the court of Lilliput. Gulliver offers to serve the emperor with his words. Gulliver prevents an invasion. His escape to Belfuscu, and ultimately Gulliver returns home. Gulliver escapes from Lilliput and returns to England. Before long, he sets out on a second voyage, which takes him to Brobdingnag. In part 2, which is titled A Voyage to Brobdingnag, the situation is reversed. Gulliver is now marooned and dwarfed in the land of giants, who are over 40 feet tall. He now becomes the midget he had laughed at in Lilliput. Observed through the microscopic eyes of Gulliver, the Brobdingnagians are hideous in size and stature, and Gulliver realizes that he must have been just as hideous to the little people in Lilliput. Here, Swift satirizes the physical grossness of the human and the grotesque ugliness of the human body. The malignancy of the human as a political animal and accompanying propensity for destruction are portrayed in the person of Gulliver. He is little more than an insect in Brobdingnag, and at his best an amusing toy. His glorious account of the English political system and England's preparations for war, horrifying the benevolent Brobdingnagian king, who is a tirade on mankind, concludes that the English must be, and I quote, the most pernicious race of little odious vermin that nature ever suffered to crawl upon the surface of the earth. Gulliver ends up in a miniature box which is picked up by a giant eagle and dropped on the ocean, and is rescued by a ship of human beings of his own size. So, the graph of the events in part 2 are as follows. Gulliver is carried to a farmer's house after being found out. Gulliver exhibited in marketplaces. Gulliver in the royal court. Lobrugrad, the metropolis. Several adventures that happened to Gulliver. His Majesty's views on Europe. Gulliver's proposal is rejected, and Gulliver returns home after the eagle has plunged him into the ocean. Part 3 is titled A Voyage to Laputa, Balnibarbi, Lugnag, Glubdubdrib, and Japan. It is a satire on the scientists and philosophers of the age. The people of Laputa have extraordinary physical features. Heads turned at an angle, one eye turned upwards and the other inward. The Laputans are so taken up with intense speculation about theoretical mathematics that they constantly worry about abstract issues such as the sun burning out or a comet colliding with the earth, but they are totally inept with the conditions when it comes to practical things like constructing straight lines but straight walls of their houses. Through the people of Laputa, Swift ridicules the experiments of the Royal Society and allied institutions of the time. His descriptions of the projects at the Academy of Lagado are brilliantly comic and emphasize their impractical nature. For example, one of the architects in the Academy of Lagado experimented with building houses starting at the roof and working downwards to the foundation. Glubdubdrib is the island of sorcerers and magicians, where it is possible to summon people who are dead to make an appearance. Gulliver amuses himself by summoning Homer and Aristotle and comparing them and others. In Lugnag, Gulliver encounters the strange phenomena of the Struldbrugs, immortal beings with decay in their bones and deformities in extreme old age attending them. The experiments at Laputa, Balniburby, and Lugnag do not yield anything. They result only in misery, decay, and death. The frightening emptiness and sterility of a purely scientific society is evident from this book. After a brief journey to Japan, Gulliver returns to England before setting out for his final voyage to the land of Houyhnhnms. So, the graph of part 3 goes like this. Gulliver arrives in Laputa. The Laputans are seen. He meets the monarch of Laputa. Gulliver is received by a great lord. He visits the great academy of Lagado. A short voyage to Glubdubdrib, the immortals of Lugnag, and finally Gulliver returns to England. Part 4 is titled A Voyage to the Country of the Houyhnhnms. It can be pronounced in two ways, Houyhnhnms or Houyhnhnms. It narrates the experiences of Gulliver in the land of the Houyhnhnms or horses and the Yahoos. These horses are creatures governed solely by reason, free from any emotion or passions, while the Yahoos, who physically resemble human beings, are ruled purely by animal instincts. The human is placed between the two extremes of rationality and animality. Observed by the Houyhnhnms viewpoint, Gulliver or humans, whom the 18th century had defined as an animal whose most striking feature was the ability to reason, is primarily a Yahoo, while with only a glimmer of reason. Gulliver is repulsed at being identified with the Yahoos in the land of Houyhnhnms. In his conversation with the master horse, whose language Gulliver has learned, he explains the customs practiced in England, including the wearing of clothes by humans who resemble the Yahoos, the government of the people, the legal system, and the uses of money as instruments of purchase. Many of the concepts cannot be translated into the Houyhnhnm language as their vocabulary and range of experience were limited. The horses with a total lack of feeling and emotion are seen as being far from ideal. They are as dull and insipid as the yahoos, with their animal sensuality are revolting. Swift seems to indicate to us that the nature of the humans is complex and defies definition, unlike that of the yahoos and the Houyhnhnms. The book, for all its harsh satire and anger, instructs humans to see themselves with humility and honesty. It condemns pride, ego, and myopic self esteem. It urges every person to use reason to be a good Christian. Gulliver finds himself in looks, speech, and manner becoming more and more like the Houyhnhnms. He grows content living with his Houyhnhnm master and hopes to be as like them as possible. However, fortune does not favor him, and it is decreed that he must leave the land, for he is, after all, a Yahoo to the Houyhnhnms. So the graph in part 4 goes like this. Gulliver arrives in the land of Yahoos and Houyhnhnms. Gulliver saves himself from starvation. Gulliver learns the language of the Houyhnhnms. He speaks on wars and law. He sees the Yahoos, learns about Yahoos. The general assembly of the Houyhnhnms. Gulliver prepares to leave the land. Gulliver arrives home. So Gulliver returns to England, but has difficulty adjusting to life with his family after such extraordinary and bizarre adventures. Thank you for listening to this video. I hope this will be a great help for you. For my video and my lecture, I have taken help from some of the sources. The sources are mentioned in the last slide. Thank you. Thank you for listening.